What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video on Let's Talk Sports. I'm your host, Josh Wright. It is currently Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 is the date, and it's 4:44 p.m. Central Time at the time of making this video. And we got some news coming out of the NFL offseason for you guys that involves Buffalo Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs, four-time Pro Bowler. Started his career out with the Vikings all the way back in 2015. Vikings drafted him in the 5th round of that year's draft out of Maryland. Didn't play much his rookie year, and then he was okay his rookie year with the Vikings, getting 9 starts, 720 yards, 52 receptions in 13 games. 9 of those games he started. And Stefon also had 4 touchdowns that year. And then eventually Stefon Diggs' career got a little bit better. And then around 2018 is when Stefon Diggs kind of broke out. Obviously, that was the year of the Minneapolis Miracle. He had the game-winning touchdown against the Saints in the playoffs. And he was really great his last 2 years with the Vikings, having 1,000-yard seasons. And then he goes over to the Buffalo Bills, which is where he's been since 2020. And yeah, he had a breakout 2020, which was his best season, and ever since then he's had consistently had over 1,000-yard seasons, and he's currently at 9,995 career receiving yards, at 67 career touchdowns, in 128 games started. He's had over 810 receptions, and his career success rate is 57.6. That is insane. However, after spending the last 4 years with the Bills, Stefon Diggs is going to be finding a new home, and that is going to be with the Houston Texans. Yep, that's pretty much it. Stefon Diggs was traded to the Texans today. So what do the Bills get? What do the Texans get? Obviously, the Texans get Stefon Diggs. The Bills, meanwhile, they get a 2024 6th-round pick, and they also get a 2nd-round pick and a 5th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Texans acquired one of those picks from the Vikings last month when they traded their 2024 first-round pick to the Vikings. And so the trade comes a day after. So Stefon Diggs, there was this somebody on social media, I think it was either Twitter or somewhere, he had a declaration that Stefon Diggs wasn't in style to Bills quarterback Josh Allen's success. And Stefon Diggs responded to him saying, "You sure?" And obviously there was a lot that went on both of those sides. The sports world went nuts over it. Not as nuts as the other things that went on in the sports world. But the latest win now move for the Houston Texans, who are now surrounding quarterback C.J. Stroud with the veteran talent this offseason. The Texans, they've had a really good offseason so far. Like they traded for Joe Mixon from the Bengals last month, and then they signed him to a 3-year extension for $27 million. I wasn't really a huge fan of that move, to be completely honest. Like, if the Texans probably could have drafted a running back and not trade for one, specifically Joe Mixon. Not saying that Joe Mixon's a bad receiver or anything. When healthy, Joe Mixon's a really solid running back. I don't know why I called him a receiver, but still, if the Texans wanted to draft a receiver, they could probably do that this year too. But running back, if the Texans wanted to get a running back this year in the NFL draft, they could have just drafted one instead of getting Joe Mixon. But I wasn't a huge fan of that move. But it's whatever. Joe Mixon is with the Houston Texans now. They also signed pass rusher Daniel Hunter to a 2-year deal. And he got a big fat $49 million contract, which included $48 million guaranteed. in free agency. And it's Stefon Diggs, who now joins a loaded Texas offense that is headlined by C.J. Stroud at quarterback, the NFL's reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year. It now includes Joe Mixon, receivers Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and tight end, former Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz. In the 2023 season, Tank Dell was on pace for 1,205 yards before suffering a season-ending injury in the first quarter against the Denver Broncos in Week 13. Dell and Stroud both finished with 8th in the most passing yards for a first-year QB and wide receiver duo at 709. Nico Collins also ranked in 8th in the receiving yards category with 1,297 and had 8 touchdowns. Last month, the Texans tried to trade for Keenan Allen and offered a day 2 pick from the 2025 NFL draft. However, the Chargers said, nope, we're not doing that, and instead they traded him to the Chicago Bears. But it was a sign that the Texans were very eager to improve their receiving core to try and help C.J. Stroud in his second season in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills, on the other hand, they have moved on from several veterans this offseason. They have lost a lot of players. They lost Tre'Davious White. They lost Jordan Poyer, who I think he went to the Dolphins. Mitch Morse is another guy they lost. And in addition, Gabriel Davis, of course, he ended up going to the Jags. And outside linebacker Leonard Floyd ended up taking a deal with the 49ers. Last year, Stefon Diggs repeatedly publicly expressed a commitment to the Bills and a desire to retire with the team. However, the 3-time captain signed a 4-year, $104 million contract extension in April of 2022. And the Bills will carry a dead money charge of $31.096 million next season after they traded Stefon Diggs away, according to the roster management system. This will be the highest known dead money charge ever for a wide receiver, if any season, according to ESPN stats and information research. By the way, this is a ESPN article. I'm not too sure who wrote it. I would love to give credit to whoever wrote this article, but I can't because, well, I don't see a writer. Maybe there is one at the end of the article here, but it's whatever. But yeah, this is a huge trade for the Texans. They get a veteran receiver out of Stefon Diggs. The Bills are going to get some draft picks. It's going to be interesting watching Buffalo next year, kind of seeing what they do now that since they've lost a lot of players this year. And yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the Bills play this year. Luckily, as a Patriots fan, I don't have to see Stefon Diggs in my division anymore, which is a great thing for me. Probably not a great thing for Buffalo. Obviously, they lost Stefon Diggs. He's a great player for sure. I know some people who don't really care much for him as a person, at all. But you have to enjoy Stefon Diggs' commitment and his work ethic and everything. And I think that's the main thing the Texans are going to get. They're going to get a good player, even though he's on the wrong side of 30. But they're going to get a guy who's going to be committed, hopefully, and will help C.J. Stroud in the Texans any way they can, or he can, to succeed next year. There's more on the article where last year Stefon Diggs was, quote-unquote, excused from the first day of the team's mandatory minicamp that Coach Sean McDermott set up, and he said he thought the matter with his star receiver was resolved. That clarification came a day after he said he was very, quote-unquote, very concerned about Diggs' absence. Diggs spoke during the season about how he wanted to continue his commitment to Buffalo, saying back in November, I've never really said anything about being unhappy or any instance of that. So when you're drawing conclusions to this stuff I've never said, that's what kind of troubles me because it kind of throws a wrench in it. It kind of creates chaos where I haven't created. And he goes on to say, the chaos created around me, whereas I just been in the same space. I've been in the same place. I've been spoken true words, and I've said the same thing over and over again. So when you draw a conclusion as to how I feel in my foreseeable future here, I never said anything, but I was a Buffalo Bill. I gave it everything I got. I'm a professional, and I treat this game as such. At the time, Stefon Diggs was distancing himself from tweets. It his brother, Trevon Diggs, who's the cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, wrote, including, "Man 14, gotta get up there." Stefon Diggs' production decreased following the first 6 games of 2023. Obviously, even though he had a solid 1,000-yard season last year, he was not that great. He did not have another 100-yard receiving game the rest of the season after the first 6 games, and he only caught 3 more touchdowns. Over the Bills' final 7 games of the last year, including the playoffs where he did absolutely nothing, and it was only time in Diggs' career that he's gone 7 straight games, or the only time in his career where he went 7 straight games without a touchdown. He did not do anything in the playoffs. He didn't do anything in the wild card game against Pittsburgh. He didn't do anything against the Chiefs. And Bills general manager Brandon Beane said after the season he still views Diggs as a number 1 receiver. Diggs has set a variety of team and league records during his time with the team, including being one of 4 players in NFL history to record 4 consecutive seasons with 100-plus receptions. He would join Antonio Brown and Devontae Adams, and Marvin Harrison are the other 3 receivers to do so. His accusation in 2020, when he was traded from when the Bills got him from the Vikings, this included the Bills' first-round pick, coincided with the rise of Josh Allen's performance. Josh Allen's second-best total QBR in the NFL, and 137 passing touchdowns in the span of only Patrick Mahomes. Diggs is one of the 2 receivers to be selected to the Pro Bowl in each of the past 4 seasons, alongside former Chief and current Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill. The trade of Stefon Diggs leaving Buffalo's depth chart topped the 2024 free agent additions, including Curtis Samuel from Washington. You have Mac Hollins from the Atlanta Falcons and Khalil Shakir, who had 39 receptions for 611 yards and 2 touchdowns for Buffalo last season. Let me know what you guys think about the Stefon Diggs trade to the Houston Texans. Do you guys think this is a good trade? Do you guys think this is a bad trade? Personally, I think this is a really solid trade for both parts. The Bills get draft picks, obviously. That's always pretty good. The Texans get a veteran wide receiver who will hopefully he'll have a great work ethic. Obviously, we saw that in Minnesota. We saw that in Buffalo, his work ethic and commitment to the team. Not really sure if it's going to be the same thing with Houston, but hopefully him and the rest of that Texans offense does something crazy going into next season. It's going to be a lot of fun watching the Texans next year. It'll be interesting watching Buffalo, obviously, being a fan of the Patriots. There, as you can see behind me, I'm glad that Diggs is out of the division. But, again, we'll see what happens with the Bills next year. We will see what happens with the Texans next year. What do you guys think about this trade? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you guys did enjoy that little highlight reel that I added into the video. Thought I would make the video pop a little bit more. And, yeah, that's all I got. Like and subscribe. We're on the road to 350. Let's try and get it by the end of the month. And with that said, I'll talk to you guys later. And Stefon Diggs, Good luck in Houston.